Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Local is Global podcast. I am your host, Clarissa Layeto. Today's episode is about the mother daughter relationships. This is not a mother bashing episode, but this is for my mothers and this is for my daughters. This is about love. This is about distance. It's about silence. It's about healing. If you've ever felt complicated feelings about your mother, this episode is for you. My mom and I didn't always have the best relationship, especially in my early young adult years. I was raised by my paternal grandparents, and that was my mom's choice. I want to be clear about something. I wasn't abandoned. My parents were mentally unstable at the time, and my grandparents stepped in. I had an older brother, and we were only a year apart, but my grandparents believed that because I was a girl, it was better that I stay with them. I don't fully know what that was about, but I do know this. I'm deeply grateful for that decision. I truly believe that I wouldn't be who I am today if that choice hadn't been made. Studies actually back this up. Research on attachment shows that children form their strongest bonds with the caregivers who provide consistency, safety, and emotional stability. Regardless of biology, kids don't guess where safety lives, they feel it. This is where it gets complicated. While my mom allowed me to stay with my grandparents, she gave my grandmother hell. She criticized everything. There was jealousy about how I treated my grandmother versus how I treated my mom. To date, some of that still festers. And I was a child, let's say 10, right? I have moments, different moments in my life, but I remember 10, being 12, I remember being 5, stuck in adult conflict I didn't create. Little by little, resentment started to build. My mom left me with my grandparents when I was just months old. I remember being 5, she took me back to live with her. I went to kindergarten at a new school. I hated it. My grandparents picked me up every Friday, and that was the one thing that I looked forward to all week. I would cry, really cry, when it was time for me to go back. Children know when there's stability and when there isn't. Research shows that emotional distress in kids often shows up as separation anxiety, not bad behavior. I wasn't being dramatic. My body knew where I felt regulated. My grandparents were my safe space. That's where I was allowed to be a kid. That's where I felt loved and seen. I was spoiled there in the best way. I grew up kind of resenting my mom. There were certain things that she would say to me about my body that made me self conscious at a very young age. And of course, you grow up, and guess what? It translates into body image issues, bulimia, a lot of things. There's also studies that show that daughters are especially impacted by maternal criticism, especially around body image. Those messages don't disappear, they settle in. But here's what I know now. That didn't mean my mother didn't love me. It meant she didn't have the tools. Everything started to make sense when I learned my mother's story. My mom came to this country from Cuba alone. She left behind her parents, 7-year-old son, her entire family. She was homeless on the streets of Bergen, New Jersey. She slept in the back of the Botanica and paid for the space by cleaning it every night. Immigration trauma shows that survival stress doesn't go away. It gets carried into parenting. When you live in survival mode, emotional softness is often the first thing to go. My mom, she didn't have time for the hugs and kisses. And that's real. When I learned her story, things began to make more sense. I always wanted to go to therapy with my mom. My mom is a deeply religious Santera woman. She believes deeply in her faith and she leans on it heavily to solve everything. So I went to therapy alone, and therapy changed my life. I learned the why behind my actions, my triggers, my patterns, my need for control, my fear of abandonment. The therapy helped me as a daughter separate the intent from impact. And that's exactly what happened for me. Therapy didn't turn me against my mother. It helped me to stop carrying what was never mine. My relationship with my mom didn't really start to heal until my 30s. That's actually very common. Mother daughter relationships often improve in midlife when daughters gain perspective and emotional language. At some point, I just said, this is who my mother is. And one thing my grandmother always said to me: your mother is your mother no matter what. You'll respect her and you will spend holidays, weekends, and any time that you have off with your mother because that's your mother. And one thing my mother says is, madre, madre, aunque sea de vinagre. And in English, that translates as your mother is your mother, even if she's even if she's like vinegar. That's deep. And my mom always says that, madre, madre, aunque sea de vinagre. And that's real. It wasn't about control with my grandmother, right? It was about grounding my identity. It was about making sure that no matter what, your mother's your mother. And I didn't realize how much I leaned on my grandmother for emotional support, for that motherly love, until my grandmother died in 2019, 7 months before we got on lockdown of March of 2020. Therapy began April 2020. When I lost my grandmother and we went into that lockdown, everything came to light. Every trigger, every trauma, every behavior, it all manifested. It all came to life. And I was like, I need therapy. I need to figure this out. 2 years ago, my mom called me and she said, I have something for you. It was a handwritten letter, written in pencil on paper she tore from somewhere. And in that letter, she was apologizing to me for leaving me with my grandparents. She said it was one of her biggest regrets. And I paused because I realized she didn't understand something. She didn't realize that she deserved all of the glory for that decision. I truly believe that no mother wants to leave their child. She didn't know that I saw her as a brave woman because we didn't talk. And part of the mother-daughter relationship, the problem is children, when we're young, when we're teenagers, because it really starts to kick in late teenage years and 20s, we don't really have the language. We don't have the opportunity. We don't have the platform because coming from where I come from, youth voice at the time, that wasn't a thing. Youth voice. Now I hear youth voice, youth voice, youth voice. I'm even, I'm big on youth voice and giving young people a platform to talk, to say how they feel, to say what they need. But that wasn't a thing growing up. It was just do as I say. So my mom gives me this letter and I realize my mom's carrying a lot of guilt. Mothers often carry guilt for decades over survival choices, even when those choices protected their children. She thought she failed me, and I think she saved me. There was miscommunication there. There were some unsaid things. When I asked my mom why she had 5 children in the States, she said, because I wanted my own family. You guys were all I had here. My children were all I had. And that hit me. The lack of communication between mothers and daughters is something that we have to change. I don't think I have a female friend who didn't have issues with their mom growing up. Not because there wasn't love, but because where we come from, we don't talk about feelings. We weren't taught how. It was, I'm the mom. What I say goes. Children speak when spoken to. Youth voice is not a thing. Mother-daughter conflict is nearly universal, especially in cultures shaped by survival, migration, and silence. I decided to just talk about this because healing doesn't mean rewriting your past. It means talking about it. It means naming it. It means ending the silence. Our mothers survived systems that never gave them softness, language, or support. Our work is to heal, so the next generation doesn't have to unlearn the silence. If we continue to blame our mothers past a certain age where we're not trying, like, I think after you hit your 30s, it's time to figure out, like, you shouldn't be going around like, I hate my mom, I don't talk to my mom, I can't stand my mom. Like, what is the story? What happened? Many of us come from a different walk of life. Some of us have our moms, some of us don't. And I'm sending so much love to those whose moms are not here with us today. But to those who have their mom, it is about building boundaries, protecting your peace, but also healing yourself, healing that child by forgiveness, forgiving our mothers who didn't have the tools, especially our immigrant mothers who come to this country with no blueprint. I ask my mom her story all the time. I love to hear it. It is a story of resiliency. It is an immigrant story that is like, how did you overcome this? I'm talking about my mom who was homeless, who came and had 5 children, who is a retired city worker now. Someone who went through so much, who had to survive. She's a real champion. I wouldn't have seen that in my 20s. I didn't understand it when I was 13 and she was always fussing with my grandmother. I didn't understand those things. But as I got older and I asked these questions and I learned my mother's story, it healed me. Just learning her story healed me. And those are the things that we need. We need to learn our mother's stories. And as we move forward and as we raise daughters in this world, and I wasn't lucky enough to have a daughter, but I have nieces. And as we move forward in this world, it is our responsibility to not let them carry what doesn't belong to them. Our trauma is our trauma, and it is our responsibility to heal and not let our children carry what's not theirs. They've got enough stuff to carry in the world. And now we have the tools to actually dig deep within ourselves, to heal ourselves, to build these relationships, to turn over a new leaf and not allow our children and the next generations to carry that same trauma.